Good morning, 7th grade. We're on to a new section. We're doing Pythagorean theorem, and even though it's with triangles, it's related to what we're doing because we're going to need to use all the square roots that we've been using. So we need to start with our triangle. It should always be a right triangle, so I'll make sure I've got one here. There's our legs, and we need our hypotenuse. And then usually we have the legs A, B, and then the hypotenuse is C. And like I made note in your slide, A and B can switch. You cannot switch B with C or A with C because that is on the other side of the equal sign. You cannot change them. So to use Pythagorean theorem, it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And you're substituting in information that's given to you into the formula so that you can solve for what we're missing. So let's say we don't have or we have A and B, we don't have C. A is going to be 3, scratch that, we'll make 3 down here because this one's smaller. So A equals 3, B equals 4. So we know A and B, so we substitute that into our formula. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. Our goal is to figure out what C squared is. So if we follow order of operations, we need to square those numbers first before we add them. So 3 squared equals 9, and 4 squared equals 16, so that'll be our next step. So 9 plus 16 equals 25. So 25 equals C squared. Now you need to be careful because that is not your final answer. You need to solve for C first. So to undo the square that we have, we need to take the square root. So the square root of 25 equals 5. And C squared, or the square root of C squared equals C. And we're going to flip that around just so that it looks nice and pretty. So that means that our missing length is going to be 5 units. Now we can change it up a bit by changing what information we know. Let's say that we know the hypotenuse and we know one of the legs and we're missing the other one. So we'll go ahead and draw our figure. And I'm going to leave it all in blue, so you have to try and figure out which is the hypotenuse. And we know we have a length of 10, a length of 12, and we're missing A. So for this one, the hypotenuse is that 12, that's the longest length, and it's always the one that's across from the right angle. So let's always start with our formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and substitute in all the information. So we're missing A. B equals 10, so we have 10 squared, and C equals 12, so we have 12 squared. So simplify all of the exponents, so 10 squared equals 100, 12 squared equals 144. Now, we have to solve this just like we would solve any other equation. So we're going to do the opposite of our order of operations. So right now we have something squared, we have addition, and so the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this addition right here. So we need to subtract 100 from the other side. So it's gone from the first side. We're left with A squared equals 44. Now, last step is to get rid of that square root. So take the square root of both sides. So A equals the square root of 44. Now, since we know how to simplify, you can no longer ever leave anything under the square root sign that can be simplified. So you should notice that 44 is divisible by 4. So we have the square root of 4, and that'll be times 11. So the square root of 4 equals 2, and we're left with the square root of 11. So that is our final answer, and we're not going to put it into the calculator or anything. We're just going to leave it like that, and that is the missing length for that leg. Okay, time for you to try one on your own. We'll do a right triangle. Might not be perfect, but it's close enough. So we have 25, 20, and an unknown leg. So always start with a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and go ahead and try that on your own. So we'll have to pause the video for a second so you can do it, and then we'll play it again when you're finished. Okay, go ahead and substitute in your numbers. Hopefully you already did that and you understand everything, but if not, we know that a is going to be 20. We don't know b, and c is 25, so we have 25 squared. Now 20 squared, we should use our mental math. 2 times 2 is 4, and then we're going to have 2 zeros. So 400 plus b squared equals, and then we need to figure out 25 squared. And 25 squared is 625. Now again, we're going to subtract the number before we do anything with that squared. So 400 cancels out. We have b squared, and 625 minus 400 equals 225. And hopefully, since all of you really studied and memorized all your perfect squares, you should know that when we take the square root of both sides, the square root of 225 equals 15. And I made a mistake and put that b squared there. It shouldn't be there. It should just be b. Alright, so your final answer, b equals 15.